Hello and welcome to Math 120. This is just a quick video on getting started in the course, whether you're in an online course or a remote course. Remember, an online course has no live lecture meetings, only lecture videos, and a remote course has at least one live meeting per week with lecture videos as well as online work. So for either of these courses, this is a sufficient video to get you started in the course. So this is just a quick checklist of some of the main things you'll need to do to get started. Maybe this video doesn't quite set you up for everything you'll need to do, but it will get you on the path to determining what the weekly workflow is like for this course and essentially getting started and ultimately being successful on the course. So the first thing we need to do is to find the course documents in Web Campus. And by that, we mean the syllabus, the course schedule, and a registration handout from MyLab. So to do that, let's switch to Web Campus. When we come to Web Campus, we'll have something that looks more or less like this. Our homepage for a Web Campus course would be something along these lines for Math 120. Under Let's Get Started, we'll find the course syllabus. Now just double check that syllabus, when you look at it, has your section number and information that makes sense for your course on it. You can read through and find details about the course, the grade category breakdowns, when the final exam is, the letter grade, plus or minus scale, and all of that. There is a syllabus quiz due in the first week. You'll find that in the first day's module. So keep in mind, you can keep the syllabus open while you take that syllabus quiz and you have a few attempts on it. The syllabus quiz does count as a mini project grade, so be sure not to miss it. Now, the second thing is the course schedule. The course schedule is just a weekly breakdown, just listing the date of the Monday of each of these weeks. And throughout this week will be assigned reading checks, homeworks, and mini projects for these chapters. Anywhere we see mini project listed, it'll be due. During test weeks, test 1 and project 1 will be scheduled accordingly. You'll see that in Web Campus, but you'll know from this schedule that it will be somewhere within this week. That might vary from section to section and meeting pattern to meeting pattern. Again, make sure these dates make sense for the semester you're in, specifically that it lists your semester here. If not, you might email your instructor and let them know that something might be wrong. Now, to find the third course document, which is the registration handout, let's go to modules. And under our first day register in MyLab and syllabus quiz, we can find this MyLab student registration handout. This is just a brief set of instructions on how to register MyLab through Web Campus or Canvas. Canvas and Web Campus are the same thing, so that you have a working integration of MyLab and Web Campus. What this means is you'll have single sign-on access to MyLab. So you can access Web Campus and then log into Web Campus and then access MyLab from Web Campus. So one of the main ways you'll do that, what these instructions tell you to do, is to click on MyLab and Mastering. This will say Get Started, and you can proceed with the directions that ensue from there. So that covers all the course documents we need to do. Now let's go back and see what's next on our checklist for getting started. So back at our checklist, we have seen the 3 main course documents. So we can check off that. And you might want to do this on your own with this checklist, which will be posted in the Getting Started week or the first day module. Next, it says find weekly modules in Web Campus. Well, we've just seen that actually. I'll point out some of the details of the weekly modules in just a moment. So we're going to preemptively check that one off. So come back to here, have a look at Web Campus. So these are the weekly modules under modules here. The first one is just an introductory module. The second module is the first day and register in MyLab and syllabus quiz modules. So we've seen much of this information already. Course schedules repeated right here, but more typically you'll see weekly modules. The first 2 weeks are combined for chapter 1, but then we go down and we'll see that week 3 will eventually turn up. Week 3 will eventually contain chapter 2 material, and so on. So these are not quite available yet. They'll be locked to students until the end of the last week of chapter 1, and then they'll open for you in Web Campus to begin working on them. Now, how does the weekly module work? It's more or less in chronological order. So this is a quick summary of the week's module, the information to be covered. Next from there is a list of what should be read, or the sections in the e-text that need to be read. Now keep in mind, you don't need a physical copy of the book. You have an e-text included with your MyLab registration. You need to only buy one thing in this course, and that's simply the MyLab registration or subscription for the semester. So, but in a weekly workflow, once you're registered, you would read these sections, take these short quizzes that are in MyLab. Demonstration of one might look like this. It might not work as well for me since I'm an instructor role. Oh, no, here we can start this test. We can take our reading checks right here in Web Campus. Remember that the reading check is actually in MyLab. It's just our integration of Web Campus and MyLab allows us to run MyLab through Web Campus. If this ever gives you trouble, you can go to MyLab directly, click on Open MyLab and Mastering, and that'll bring you to the full MyLab course. So when we see this here, we can see that we can find a list of assignments. If you ever want to work ahead, if Web Campus has locked you out of future assignments, you can always scroll down, find chapters 2, chapters 3, and then later on 4s, 5, and 6 to work ahead in the course rather than be limited by what Web Campus makes you do. Also, if Web Campus is giving you trouble, you can access the reading check for 1A directly through MyLab as we're doing here, and that's just as well. All of your grades from MyLab will sync with your grades in Web Campus, so that's a nice advantage to have and part of this single sign-on scenario. Also, if Web Campus won't even open, you could feasibly log into Pearson by going to mylabandmastering.com or just Googling MyLab and Mastering, logging into Pearson directly and going to your Math 120 course and working on these assignments as you see them here. So that's the MyLab component of the course. Most of the work, anything that's not a mini project or project, will be done in MyLab. Let's see, next up, after you've completed the reading checks, or at least started the reading checks for the week, you might want to view the lectures. With each lecture is a PDF of the notes, the blank notes used for these lecture videos. The first lecture video is 1C. 1A is skipped because it's fairly simple material that can be read. So 1C, you'll notice, is a video lecture with slides like this, as we see here in the thumbnail. If we return back to this page, we can find that the PDF for 1C are the same blank notes that would be used for the lecture video. You don't need to use these lecture video notes when you watch the lecture videos, but you might use them if you want to follow along and take notes with the video. Now, say maybe you don't do that, or say you are doing that and you want to have some of the information that was jotted down in the video and you didn't quite get it on your own. If you return to the modules page, you'll find another tool that's in every week's module, and that's the Annotated Lectures folder. This is a link to a Dropbox folder. Just follow it out, and you can open the 1C Venn diagrams PDF. And we can see a completed version of these notes. Everything is filled in and worked out, and it should more or less match the completed notes that you see worked out on the video. So that's a nice tool for watching the videos. So let's get back to the modules. And remember that at this point, what we've done in our week is we've read our sections. We've taken the reading checks or started to take the reading checks. Now we're beginning to watch the lecture videos. Once we've completed all the lecture videos and our reading checks, we'll start to work on homework. In an online course, you won't have this Meet tab. There is no meeting that takes place in the online courses. In a remote course, you might have something that looks like this. You can click on this page and find our meeting links to come to the live meetings of the week. But all courses will have a discussion component of the module. This is an optional discussion forum where you can ask questions and answer questions other students have asked. It's a good place to turn if you have a question about material or administration in the course. Your instructor should check that as well and be able to give feedback to students accordingly. Hopefully students can answer other students' questions and everybody can benefit from the learning involved there. Office hours are open to everybody. Online and remote courses may use your instructor's office hours. In this case, it's a Monday and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. The links for these remote meetings are all available on this page. Students can come and go at any time. You don't need to announce yourself or let me know ahead of time that you will join an office hour. You can stay for as little as you like, 1 minute to ask a question, or you can stay the whole time, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. on both days. It's all up to you, but you can come and go and use these materials or use these resources as you see fit. So that's it for our discussions of materials throughout the weekly module. And you'll find down below, what might you be discussing? Well, you would probably be discussing the homework that's due for that chapter in that week. So once the homework is completed, and you'll see that the due dates sort of point in this direction, the latest due date on here is the mini project due date. Mini projects, just like projects, are completed or taken in Web Campus. Usually there's at least a few attempts. In this case, there are 4 attempts for the first one. We complete this as if it were a quiz and submit it when we're done to get a grade, and we can improve that score so long as we have more attempts available. The correct answers are not posted at any point, so you're just marked correct or incorrect. You might see your answer here listed and then your answer repeated below and marked incorrect. It's not showing you the correct answer, it's just showing you your answer once again. So those are the mini projects, and that's essentially the weekly module. Once we're done with a normal week, eventually we get down to test and project week. The module will look like a similar layout. Of course, online courses won't have the meeting heading, but they'll have everything else. And you'll have your practice test and tests that you can take, as well as the project assignment that you can complete in Web Campus. So the project's completed in Web Campus, the tests are completed in MyLab. Now, with the project, you'll have 2 weeks before the project's due to begin working on it. I highly recommend that be the case. You work on this as soon as possible to get feedback from your instructor and to do your best on it, because projects are worth as much as tests. Practice tests count as mini project grades, and tests will count as test grades. Each, the practice test and the test, are taken in MyLab. You have 24 hours to complete the test itself. The practice test will close right before the 24-hour window of the test opens, so be sure to take the practice test at least a week before the test actually opens. And once you do begin a test, you're timed at 75 minutes. The final exam is timed for 2 hours. So those are the weekly modules for normal weeks and for test and project weeks. So let's go back to our list and check that off. So we've taken care of the weekly modules in Web Campus. We've also seen the registration in MyLab for Web Campus. So we can check that off. Remember, that can be had by clicking on any assignment in MyLab and completing the registration that ensues from there, or by going to MyLab and Mastering tab in the Web Campus page. So let's go back and have a look at that, and completing the instructions that follow. So to pointedly look at this, click on MyLab and Mastering in the navigation tabs. This is where the bulk of your work is done. So reading checks, homeworks, tests, and practice tests are all taken in MyLab. This will say get started in your case. So you'll click on that and you agree to some terms and licensing agreement, and then you'll proceed with the registration process. If you already have a Pearson account, you can use that Pearson account, but you'll have to use an access code that you might have bought online or at the bookstore, or at the very least, you'll have a credit card to purchase a subscription for the semester. I believe it's about $70, but that changes from semester to semester. So that should get you started there. One of the most important things you do is get registered in MyLab as soon as possible. Now note that at the beginning of the semester, there might be a lot of high traffic with Pearson's website, and they might have some trouble getting your registration through. You might have to attempt this a few times. Many people will do this and get it in the first try. Some unlucky folks will take a few tries. Things I can suggest would be to try a different browser. update the browser that you're using, clear your cookies in history. Other things to do would be to try a different device altogether. If you're using a phone, then try a laptop. If you're using a laptop, try a desktop. Most recommended is that you use a laptop or a desktop to complete these assignments and to work in MyLab, because not all of these navigation features are available on phones or tablets or in the mobile versions of them. So that's registration for MyLab. You may run into issues. Ultimately, Pearson support is one of your best resources. If you do find that you're delayed in completing or beginning the assignments for the week, let your instructor know you're having trouble getting registered, but continue to try to register. Once you're in, your instructor should be able to adjust these due dates within the first week or maybe into the second week, but really no later than that. So you really want to be on top of your registration and be attempting to get in and in touch with your instructor as soon as possible. The syllabus quiz is our next bullet. I've already pointed out that this is available to you, but it's down here. Remember, it counts as a mini project. It's due by the end of the first week typically. So go ahead and take that. So we'll check the syllabus quiz off in our list and look at our last item on that list. So the syllabus quiz is checked off. And the last thing it tells us to do is to access the e-text in MyLab to begin reading and completing reading checks and homework. So we've already seen reading checks and homework. Let's have a look at the e-text. So once we're registered in MyLab, all we have to do is click on MyLab and Mastering. Select Open MyLab and Mastering. We'll end up in a MyLab course that looks more or less like this. You might not see all the options that the instructor sees here, but go down to e-text and the navigation tabs on the left and open the e-text link. And here we are at our textbook for the course. Now I'll repeat what I said before about this. You only need this e-text access. You don't need a physical copy of the book. Many students buy the book and the access code as a bundle, and that's fine if you prefer to have the physical copy of the book, but the only thing you actually need is the e-text access at the bare minimum. So the one thing you need to buy in the course is simply the access code or the semester subscription from MyLab. So the book has some interactive features. This is a short video on sets and Venn diagrams. These things aren't required to be watched, but you can use them if you find them to be helpful. Another feature of the books is examples you can try related to problems you've been looking at. So this is a video on set notation, and this is an example exercise that you might attempt on your own if you find these things to be helpful as you go through the book. Again, they're not required, but it's something you might want to use as you read the textbook. So once we would have completed the reading for section 1C that we're in here, we can go back to Web Campus, or we can even go back to MyLab and select reading check for 1C. In either place, we can do this, reading check for 1C. We can begin and submit the reading test for 1C. Again, you can pop back and forth by looking at the book and answering questions. That's actually recommended. That way you can confirm your answers, verify it to the reading, and complete the reading checks. Homeworks will work very similarly. And that is the reading checks and homeworks in MyLab. Now, of course, also the tests will obviously be open book, open note. You can't use any other resources beyond that. In other words, no online tutors, no help from friends, just you, the book, and your notes. That's perfectly sufficient for the test. And maybe one last thing to point out. Again, I said you only need to buy one thing for this class. If we look on the first steps page here, there's a suggestion that the syllabus says we need to have one of two different calculators. Since these are online or remote courses, you really only need to use Desmos Online Scientific Calculator. And that looks just like this. You can Google Desmos Scientific Calculator or use the link in the Getting Started page there. This is a great tool. I recommend it to everybody in this class. As a scientific calculator, it just makes the formulas that we use mid-semester and later that much easier. So that should be it for getting started. Really, to review, find the course documents in MyLab, here and here in the registration handout. Have a look at the weekly modules to understand what's due next. You can also keep track of the order in which things are due by watching your to-do list over here, or this says coming up. Either way, you can view the calendar for something similar. And we should see assignments that show up in the calendar. Yep. And we'll know by day through the calendar what's due. Try to work ahead by a few days at all times. So those are the weekly modules. Register for MyLab, of course, so that you can access all of those tools. Take the syllabus quiz and get to work on reading checks and homework. Otherwise, be sure to email your instructor using the Web Campus inbox that you have related to this course. That's the fastest way to get a hold of your instructor. It's a student-focused inbox, and it should be sufficient for all your needs for the semester. Okay, good luck getting started. If you have any other questions or issues, try the discussion forums first. It's a great place to share information with each other. For theme 1, it's probably the place to get started. We're in the first theme, chapters 1 through 3 are theme 1, and your instructor and or peers can help answer those questions. Otherwise, you can email your professor, or you can join your professor's office hours, which should be listed and linked to each week down here under discuss. Okay, good luck everybody. I look forward to working with each of you.